Hello, welcome to Premier Scene. I'm Claire Bueno as we attend the UK premiere of 5 Days of War, starring Rupert Friend, Val Kilmer and the unforgettable Andy Garcia. How important was it for you to highlight the issues that went on over in Georgia?
Well,
Bring it to a Western audience, really.
I know it's a question, you know. It's not a simple answer. I know there is true, but there's never one true. There is always something else. So I hope, Renny made some interesting version about what happened there. And, we'll see.
Mr. Bush has made it very clear that they will not intervene.
Whoa, this has been shot on the red, hasn't it?
Yeah, this was shot on the red. We shot on several reds. And at one point we had 16 reds at the same time. And yes, it was quite a project.
How has that been working? Presumably you've worked with film before, so what's it been like going into this sort of medium?
I started as a news cameraman. So I was a news cameraman for 12 years. I was a war correspondent. So I did start on tape long time ago. And then I moved to film because I became a filmmaker and a director of photography. So to me the transition to tape, to data again, to digital, it's a very simple transition. It has an extremely amount of advantages, and it's still not film, but it shouldn't be film because it's different. So you embrace the medium and you make a good picture.
With your experience then, with war, does that give you a more realistic approach and vision to this film and realistic look?
Well, there are like two levels of the question. The first level is, I think Renny looked at several resumes and reels from the director of photography, and then when he went through mine, he found something he wanted, which is, first of all, my background as a news cameraman, because I was in several wars throughout the 80s and 90s. So that gave me a fresh look, and that gave me an ancient look. So I suffered throughout the filming because most of it felt like it was happening to me yesterday. So which probably gave a different perspective. On the other hand, having been a filmmaker for so many years, also you're able to step out and look over yourself and look at the images in a way the audience will understand what the war is. And Renny didn't want it to make it sexy or beautiful. He wanted to make it very raw and very, very intense, which is, I hope, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but when you see
We're going to see it in a minute.
When you see it, I hope that's what you feel. You want to be in there, and it's not nice. It's a horrible thing that should not happen ever.
You had Thomas Sanders and Sebastian Gans.
Quarters.
So you guys got a plan yet?
My guy from Iraq. Thought he might have some leads.
Where you headed?
Skinwalli.
The separatist capital.
So what attracted you to this role?
Well, Renny Harlin, number one, the director. I've been loving his work for as long as I can remember. But when I read the script, I played the role of Rezo Avellani. I'm the captain of the Georgian military. Number one is a very challenging role, physically as well as emotionally, because this conflict happened 3 years ago. And so when I went there and I met all the military representation that was working with me, the U.S. Marines actually took me into the Georgian boot camp and actually trained me so that actually trained with the Georgian soldiers as they were getting ready for the Afghan conflict, which is very personal to American because we're trying to make right what was wrong, and I think that's what this film is really about, making right what was wrong.
How did you get into the mindset of a soldier? Was it the research that you did with them? Because they do say, to have to go out to battle like they do and be prepared to die, you have to be a certain personality, really. So how did you prepare for that?
Well, I got to be around the Georgian soldiers. My soldiers in the film are actually special forces, as well as just regular ground troops, and a lot of them had fought in the war, so they knew exactly what was going on. And I couldn't communicate very well with them, but as I was trained at the boot camps, there was a lot of them who could speak English, and I learned where their mindset was during the course of the war and what they wanted to be able to accomplish to protect. Because they didn't deal with the politics; they just dealt with trying to keep their country free.
What lasting memory have you taken with you from making this film?
Well, I have more than lasting memories. I actually wear around my neck the dog tags from the character that I played. His name is Avliani, and my character's name is Rezo Avliani. So I actually physically bring something with me as I go along in my life because it affected me so personally.
You see men with white armbands, black masks. You don't take pictures, you run.
We witnessed something. Executions in a village. Faster than all on tape. We have to get it out.
When soldiers go to battle, they are prepared for the worst that can happen. But when the press go out into war zones, how are they prepared for what potentially could happen to them too?
Well, I think war correspondents are a unique breed. I think they're amazing. I understand them. I've been to war. I've been out and been in war situations. It becomes addictive in a sense. There's a rush to it. And these war correspondents are a certain breed. They are well prepared for the things that happen. They understand the dangers. If you study history, forever they've been doing it and been caught in awful situations and had to pay the price. But they believe that the sacrifice is worth is worth what they can get out there, and that's really essentially what the story is about.
And when we're making films of a war genre, do we have to be careful that we don't have so many war films that the public almost become desensitized to the horrific atrocities that happen in war?
I don't think so. I think when you go to a war zone and you see the atrocities with your own eyes, it's a different ball of wax. I don't care if you've seen 9,000 war movies. The first time you see someone with their leg blown off, it changes everything you've ever thought about war. And I don't think that anybody ever becomes desensitized to it. I don't think films do that. I don't think video games do that. I have a child. He's 11 years old. He sees all those films. He plays all those video games. I've taught him how to use firearms, but he understands what it's like. And I show him the photographs, and I explain to him how it happens. And for him, there's a real responsibility there. So I think he understands it. I don't think there's a danger of being desensitized.
Does this make this film then even more personal for you?
Very much so. It's a big reason I wanted to be involved. Renny Harlin's a great friend of mine, and he called me last moment, and I zipped out and did that, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. I'm proud to be in a movie of this magnitude that deals with a subject matter like this. That's very personal to me, and it was really fascinating to shoot in President Saakashvili's office. It was fascinating to speak to my real counterparts, who was there throughout all of this, and to speak with the president about this. So that's an insight that you can't gain even when you're speaking to a reporter. You and I can have this conversation here, but if we sat down afterward without a camera, somehow the conversation flows differently and you get more tidbits that you don't really get. There's no sound bites and things of that nature.
The film is sort of loosely based on fact, so how much does that give you sort of artistic license to be a little more creative with the story?
Yes, we did our research very carefully using EU and UN and Human Rights Watch websites where they gather information. So we wanted to get the course of the war, the main events of the war absolutely correct. But then, of course, our characters are a combination of real-life characters. Our main characters are war journalists who go there to cover the war and get much more involved than they ever expected. And I really wanted to, instead of sort of showing what the soldiers do, I wanted to show what the war journalists go through and what the civilian population goes through in this kind of a conflict.
Yeah, I think it makes a nice change to have a different point of view, doesn't it, really, from the perspective of a journalist?
Definitely, and I think that the journalists really are the unsung heroes. They don't have weapons, but they are exactly there in the same places as the soldiers and the civilians. And as we sadly know from recent events in many places in the world, these these people who are trying to tell us what's going on and kind of get the word out of the local people. Sadly, many times they either get injured or even lose their lives doing this.
I mean, where the event takes place isn't probably that well known to a Western audience. How difficult has it been for you as a producer to try and get funding to make the film?
It was a real challenge because the war took place in August 2008 during the Olympics, and the world didn't really pay attention much. And when you start doing the research and you find out what they went through and how nobody really helped, everybody was like, there's nothing we can really do. And the whole country could have lost its independence. And now 100,000 people lost their homes, many people lost their lives. But the country, because they don't have oil or something like that that would really draw attention and interest, it's the story that I felt that it was very powerful to tell. But like you said, if in America you tell somebody that there was a war between Georgia and Russia, they'd be like, when did Russia attack America? That's shocking. Did they get to Atlanta? People don't really know much about Georgia, but I hope through this movie they will.
And I mean, you've got such an eclectic cast as well, incredible cast. What was that like working with all of them? Such a talent.
Yeah, I wanted some of them are of course more famous and some are great actors, but not necessarily superstars. But I wanted to have interesting actors and actors that you would believe in these roles and that their fame or stardom wouldn't draw attention away from the actual story. So I was really happy to put this group together. And the movie was a challenging one to shoot. We shot in actual locations where the war took place. We shot in distant mountain locations where we slept on trains or in farmhouses. And so there was none of that sort of Hollywood glamour. But everybody was there for the right reason. So it pulled us together and made us a real family.
And from a technical perspective, you chose to shoot on a red. What made you go down that route?
That's a really good question. I love red, and I was before that I've shot everything I've done on film, but now I realize that it's so much faster, so much cheaper, and in a movie especially like this where I have these long battle scenes and stuff like that, I could just keep the cameras rolling and not worry about spending too much money on film and so on. And in the post-production process, how you can manipulate the color and the light and shadings and everything, it's kind of like doing Photoshop on your computer. So it was fantastic. So I will never shoot film. Sadly, I will never shoot film again. And I'm very happy to use red.
How did you think you could survive this?
As an actor, I try to bring all my personal experiences to everything I do because that's where I have to draw from. You know, I have to try to find those connections that somehow have a parallel to the parts that I'm playing, and that's part of the personalization of any part, you know.
And how do you feel about the freedom that of expression within the film?
Well, that's essential, isn't it? You know, absolute freedom is essential in any society, and that's a fight or a struggle that, unfortunately, many countries are still fighting for, and deprived of, and. In the utopian sense, we want everybody to be free, but that's not the case in our world today, you know. And in the case of Georgia, obviously they were fighting for their sovereign, state and the ability for the people to live under, and be free under their own society, and that created a certain conflict, and it's unfortunate it happened because there's a lot of casualties that happen. But maybe in the future that those two countries can respect each other and move on to a higher ground, and then that's why these movies are important, because it's a war movie, but it's really hopefully an anti-war movie,
Well, that's it from the UK premiere of 5 Days of War down here in BAFTA. The party's just about to begin and we're off to see the movie. We'll see you next time here at Premiere Scene. Claire Bueno signing out.